This is One Lucian Radio, coming at you with the best in news, music, and entertainment. I'm Norbert Williams with you until... With me this morning is renowned St. Lucian artist Naomie Grandison, also known as Ngozi. We're talking about the prevalence of child molestation in St. Lucia, and especially rape and the number of heinous sex crimes which have been committed in St. Lucia recently. What are your thoughts about these high-profile cases we have had in St. Lucia over the past few months, particularly the rape of the 97-year-old woman in Monrepo, and just in the past week or two, we heard about rape at Monjero and another at Casamba Beach, and also we heard of another instance where a man and his girlfriend were basically abducted and she was raped as well in his presence. Has Zandoli International Foundation, which is a St. Lucian organization in the US, which has a branch in St. Lucia and with numerous volunteers in the diaspora who are concerned about the welfare of the young and vulnerable people in St. Lucia. And we are at the verge of presenting a petition to the government of St. Lucia for the establishment of a sex offender registry. And we must note that a number of organizations and individuals over the years have been speaking out against the scourge of rapes and child molestation in St. Lucia. Naomie Grandison, who is a much recognized artist on the St. Lucia scale, she won the Miss Commercial House, Miss Intercommercial House Calypso competition in 2014. She has a number of well-known recordings. One of them is
Edenu. I Am Beautiful.
I Am Beautiful is one of my favorites, I told you a long time ago. So what in lending your voice to this effort of ridding St. Lucia as much as we can of these crimes, what are your thoughts about the situation as it exists now?
I feel like the occurrence of these sexual crimes on vulnerable persons, the elderly, the young people, even persons who are together in a relationship are being abducted, is a sign of extreme violence and fear in our society. I am of the opinion that the persons who are committing these crimes need help, and that their minds and behavior are extreme forms of violence, are filled with violence and some sort of pain that needs to be addressed. But it is a bigger issue. After having a discussion with you, I have come to understand the sex registry on a better level, because as expected, when I did hear about it, I was concerned about, interestingly enough, I was concerned about when names are out there, how persons would be treated. But I came to reflect upon that and say to myself, but who are we protecting? Who do we want to protect? Because if you have a criminal mind, if you have a force of violence in your midst, then the concern should be about the vulnerable people that are being affected by that force. And I am a woman, and just imagining the idea of somebody forcing themselves on me is already traumatic. So I could only imagine literally what a woman, a 90-something-year-old woman, or a woman who's there with her boyfriend, or a woman who's trying to earn a living in a shop, how she would feel to be abducted and forced upon, and for that individual to feel that that act is okay is in itself a problem. It's almost like we have to protect that individual from themselves, because there's a part of them that is not connected to their conscience, to the morals, to their civic responsibility in that moment. And so I think there's the talking and the talking and the talking is clearly not doing anything. It is not resolving anything. It is not bringing this issue to be redressed in any way. And so we continue to create and provide an environment for these violent forces, these sexual crimes. We are actually creating an environment for them to take place, because when a mind like that is aware that, he or she, can get away with these particular crimes, or that there is nothing significant to deter them from these crimes, then it becomes easier to do these things.
But you see, the thing is, in the St. Lucian environment, we have what we refer to as sutiwes, or facilitators, or enablers, as some people say, to this sort of crime. And you find family members, you find friends, you find people in high places who are related in some way to the perpetrators of those crimes, making excuses and covering up for them. You have the what's referred to in St. Lucia as the wangement, where the victims or the victim's family would be paid off, or that victim would be given a one-way ticket to New York or to London to get rid of them. And the cycle continues in St. Lucia because the perpetrators of these crimes continue to remain without paying the penalty for any of the crimes that they have committed. So in essence, their family members, friends, and other people are only allowing the situation or the crime to continue and keep going on and on. Now, as far as a sex offender registry is concerned, we have a number of people who are opposed to a sex offender registry, and they seem to believe that the perpetrators of those crimes, the persons who will be on the sex offender registry, will become targets themselves. But one of the things that we have noticed about the St. Lucian environment in all of this is that St. Lucians, for some strange reason, are a very forgiving people, and very often to their own detriment. And what we have witnessed with persons who have been convicted of these crimes before is that they are well known in the society, they serve their time in prison, and we have no evidence of any instance where a convicted sex offender or child molester has been released from prison and has been attacked because of that. The law still applies whether you are a sex offender or not, because we have people who commit other crimes and their pictures appear and they're known in the community and they are not attacked and they are not targeted as a number of people suggest. I think the bigger picture here is especially the community policing strategies which have been pushed by the government, which have been pushed by the police force, are a critical part of fighting crime. But the important aspect in all of this is the community, and the eyes and ears of the people living in that community are important in making community policing successful. The only way to be able to do this is if the people in the community know who those sex offenders are, or at least have the ability to know who they are if they so decide. Recently we have an instance within the last 2 weeks where a dance teacher was arrested for child molestation, for some sexual contact with a student. Now, as a parent, what is your ability to control the people whom your child is around if you do not have this facility available? How can you decide whether a teacher is appropriate? How can you decide whether somebody new in the neighborhood is appropriate for your child? Recently we had a statement by the Minister of Home Affairs and National Security, Victor Lacorbinier, who said that the offenders are already known to the authorities. But how does that help the parent? How does that help a parent who wants to send their child to piano classes? This does not exist. A manner of verifying people does not exist for the regular citizen. However, if you apply for a number of jobs at banks and a number of places where trust is particularly important, you need to get a police record. So how do we deal with these situations to enable the public to make informed and sensible decisions where their children are concerned or where their own safety is concerned? And now we see St. Lucia is a member of CSME. With a sex offender registry, we will have St. Lucian offenders on that registry. But how is that going to protect us from residents who can freely travel to St. Lucia from St. Vincent or Grenada or Dominica or Antigua? So herein now we have a problem in the region that we have to address, and that Zandoli has been working with a number of other like-minded organizations in the Caribbean region who are pushing for their own sex offender registries to complement each other. And eventually, what we're working on is for a CARICOM sex offender registry that the entire region can be included in one database that anybody in any of the territories can conduct a search on to verify whether a person is on the list or not. How do you see the music industry or prominent people in St. Lucia shedding light and sensitizing people to this more? Because you have a very important medium that you control, that you have a great ability to impart information on. How can you use that, or how do you see other artists in the calypso field or in the soca field or in whatever genre of music in St. Lucia being able to put out the message that this is an issue that we all have to be sensitized even further against?
Well, before I move into answering that question, I do want to say that first and foremost, there should be a lot of discussion on this issue, on initiating a sex offenders registry, because there's a lot of anxiety within all of us concerning the effects of for me, one of my concerns initially would be the labeling of somebody. What if somebody were to commit a crime and ideally they've changed, and forever and ever they would be labeled as somebody who is not safe to be around? How would that affect them psychologically? So that's one of the things I think. Although I definitely support a move towards protecting our vulnerable people, particularly against sex offenders, I still feel that there's a lot of discussion that needs to go into it. So I think the artists like myself, what we have done here should be something that needs to be done. We open a forum for discussion to be able to discuss the pros and cons, to really understand the objective of it all and everything. That's the starting point, I think, the discussions.
Well, that is what a number of organizations have been doing over the years, and that's particularly what we're doing as well in engaging a number of youth groups, organizations in St. Lucia. We've actually begun speaking to a number of business people in St. Lucia in the commercial sector. But one of the things we have to realize is that anything you do is going to create a label for you, and sex offenders, as well as all other offenders, have to realize that there are consequences to their actions. Whatever fallout there is from those actions is solely on them. It's their part. We have murderers, we have thieves, we have all types of offenses, and whether we like it or not, if you want to see the fallout of that, if you apply to the bank or a number of businesses where finances are concerned, you have to produce a criminal record. And based on that criminal record, you may very well be denied that job because of your past.
Can I ask something? I think one of the concerns would be that the criminal record goes to the employer, the police force would have the information, but if you had committed a crime 20 years ago and there is a registry available to the entire population, then it's something that anybody at any point in time can find out about. Well, so it's not in the background.
Well, actually, sex offender registries are not a lifetime thing. usually you have varying levels of severity for these sex crimes. So, for example, in the U.S., an example of New Jersey, you would have, there are 3 categories.
I see.
So you would be on a sex offender registry for either 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years.
Thank you for
that. And after that period of time, you would be removed from the registry because it would have been deemed to be a reasonable period of time within which any cautions about your activities or behavior would have been dealt with.
Okay. Unless you reoffend.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, thanks for that clarification. Again, I see the starting point with us artists, particularly those like myself who are into consciousness and positive movements and self-awareness. We begin with these discussions and we look for a forum. We look for a forum for us to create the type of music, and not just the music, the poetry, the dances, the theatric productions, and especially theatric productions, as a matter of fact, because it can bring all the different art forms together. You have the acting, you have the singing, you could even have the dancing in there, you could have some visual art in there. The whole theatric idea is a nice idea for the issue that Zandoli is pushing with regards to doing something tangible for dealing with persons who have been sex offenders and by extension other criminals. So I think that the whole idea of a theatric production for me definitely sounds like something, the best idea that I could come forth with, because it could bring up a lot of the issues that we spoke about culturally, how we are people that are anxious about these things. Maybe our cousin, our brother, our father would be these sex offenders, and just knowing that, okay, people in your community alone would know that, but then people in the outside of your community may not know, and okay, they can verify that now, and the shame that might come with that, and the shame that might come with that is another concern. But we have to look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture, and in fact, we have to look at the objective and the goal. And as I've been speaking with you, it is important for us to protect the vulnerable, even if they themselves don't have the strength to stand up against it. We, the citizens who have the understanding, who've done the research, who've been privy to getting the information that can help to protect our fellow brothers and sisters, we need to take a stand. And I think that's what Zandoli is all about. And I think that's what we should be doing as citizens. And I myself feel that I want to do more myself. And lending a voice is a starting point. So it's no longer about protecting criminal behavior. And that's what I want to not focus on the person in as much as the behavior and the thinking that lies within that person that cannot be trusted, and so has to be controlled and monitored. This is why we have a justice system. And you need to discourage this type of behaviors. And if people know their faces are going to be out there, if people know when they get caught and convicted, their faces are going to be out there, then by golly, let's hope that would discourage them from doing the crime in the first place.
Well, thank you very much. With me today is Naomie Grandison, also known as Ngozi, and well-known artist in St. Lucia, jazz, multiple genre artist, and she's lending her voice to the Zandoli drive for a sex offender registry in St. Lucia. Thank you very much, Naomie.
Thank you.
This is One Lucian Radio.